Anyone who has ever played a team sport has a general idea of what it means to be a captain. You're the leader of the team, the heartbeat. Choose whatever cliche you want, but it is vital to have a player that can serve in this role honorably. Regardless of the sport, someone has to effectively be able to mediate amongst the players and between them and the coaching staff. This is particularly relevant in the NFL, where a team has 53 guys, all with vastly different personalities, motivations, and goals, who need to be guided towards a common goal. So make no mistake about it, captains are not a new concept. The players that are selected as captains are usually designated in one of two ways: a team vote or unilateral selection by the head coach. Ask any player worth his weight about the value of a legitimate team captain, and he will tell you how important it is to have one of these kinds of guys on their team. And while many teams will end up designating their starting quarterback as the captain, this isn't always the case. Some teams choose to make their new potential franchise quarterbacks earn their stripes before bestowing captaincy upon them. The captain designation can really make or break a team depending on how the player handles their responsibility. Let's face it, not everyone is cut out to lead, and while a lot of teams will hastily award the honor to its best players, far too often that is a huge mistake. A mistake that can have severe consequences for the team. One of the most notorious instances of this happened in New York with the Jets and San Antonio Holmes. Following a strong 2010 campaign with the Jets that saw Holmes make a number of heroic plays and helped lead the team all the way to the AFC Championship game, the organization gave him a 5-year deal and named him a captain heading into the 2011 season. After starting the 2011 season 2-0, the team slid into a 3-game losing streak, and Holmes began to sour amid the frustrations. This is a situation where a captain needs to pick up his team and get them back on track. But Holmes was unable to get out of his own way and ultimately ended up becoming a huge distraction. And let's just say his teammates did not take kindly to his leadership style. The tensions climaxed in the fourth quarter of the Jets' final game of the season, a game that the Jets needed to win in order to qualify for the postseason. The game was against one of their bitter AFC East rivals, the Miami Dolphins, who, by the way, were 5-10 heading into the game. This was the same team that the Jets had comfortably dispatched earlier in the season, 24-6. During the fourth quarter, with the game still very much in the balance, Holmes appeared to get into an argument with Jets offensive tackle Wayne Hunter while the team was huddling. As a result of the argument, Holmes was benched for the remainder of the game, and the Jets would go on to lose and miss the postseason. Considering the importance of the situation, the fact that Holmes, the Jets' most talented wide receiver, was benched, it seems pretty obvious that there had been a number of issues between him and other members of the team prior to that incident. The situation was so dire, the head coach at the time, Rex Ryan, eliminated captains as a whole in the organization. Former Jets and Dolphins quarterback Chad Pennington, who was a captain for both organizations, had some interesting commentary on the situation and the captaincy as a whole. He said, "Just because you're a good player, it doesn't mean you're a captain. Some guys just don't handle that role well. They're the type of people that have to be so focused on themselves that they can't take focus off of that and put it on the team. That's just not how they operate. And I don't think it's a good thing or a bad thing. Everyone has to find their niche." Holmes' brief tenure as a team captain is often pointed to as a poignant reminder of why it's so important not to delegate the honor to the team's more talented players without careful consideration, because it is far more of a responsibility than an honor. Pennington is right. NFL teams need to find the right balance of leadership, chemistry, and talent if they want to have success. Sometimes teams luck out, though, and have talented players who are natural-born leaders as well, like the Denver Broncos when Champ Bailey was leading the way for them. Bailey was a top 10 draft pick, a 12-time Pro Bowler, and was selected to All-Pro team 7 times, and has since been inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility. So there is little doubt as to what Champ Bailey meant to his team on the field. But what is often overlooked about the cornerback out of Georgia is what an amazing leader he was for his team. It wasn't even that he was the rah-rah guy giving pump-up speeches. Instead, Bailey was motivating his teammates purely by example. In any given locker room, you have guys who can be very loud but not say a whole lot, Bailey said after officially being named team captain. You also have guys who speak up when they need to. I hear a lot of people talking, but you don't get a lot of info. Lead by example. That's the way that has worked for me. By displaying such a humble and team-first demeanor, players like Bailey have also been able to garner the respect necessary from their coaches to allow them to effectively be a liaison between the coaches and the players. Bailey relayed a story to NFL.com about an instance in training camp where he was able to step in and represent the voice of the players to the coaching staff. We'd reached a point where guys were very beat up, and we had another padded practice scheduled for that day, he said. So some of the larger guys approached me to say they really needed a break. They told me they'd go hard tomorrow, but they just needed the break that day. So I took the concerns to the coach. You can't take every concern to him, but if it's the appropriate time to do something, he'll do it. Considering the magnitude of the impact that captains can have on an NFL team, it was rather curious that nothing was ever really done externally to recognize these players for quite some time. There was never really a way for the average fan watching on TV to identify who a team's captains were. That was until 2007, when NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell met with the NFL Players Association to discuss a way that they could pay homage to these players and promote their character to the fans watching the games at home. The two parties decided on permitting teams to name up to 6 players as official captains, who would be recognized by an NFL-sanctioned patch on the left or right breast of their jerseys. The NFL developed a standard design that is used by all of the teams participating in the captaincy program. Teams are not required to designate captains. Some of them, like the Green Bay Packers, under former head coach Mike McCarthy, famously chose the team captains on a weekly basis. Donald Driver, a longtime wideout for the Packers, who would have likely been one of the team's designated captains, explained the psychology behind the decision. "We feel like our entire team is filled with leaders," Driver said. "We don't need to have that one guy who has to speak up all the time. We have 53 captains day in and day out." While this has worked for the Packers to some degree, it can cause stress in a locker room to not have the leaders designated for the team because it will often lead to players jockeying to be the voice. That is why so many teams have most of their 6 captains selected on a long-term basis and recognize them with the patch that Goodell and the NFLPA introduced back in 2007. The patch is a 2.5-inch C that features 4 stars running beneath the base of it. Anyone who has watched football has probably noticed that not all of these patches look exactly the same, and that is because they are not. The patches have a few intricacies to the design of each player's patch. These subtle differences signify the tenure and status of the captains wearing them. The number of stars beneath the C that are actually filled in on the patch represents the number of consecutive years that the player has been named captain by a team. Once a player has held the distinction for more than 4 years, the C gets filled in gold as well. Now, if you have noticed the patch in a color other than white or gold, don't fret. You aren't hallucinating. During special recognition periods, the NFL may dictate that the patch is changed to a different color, like pink for breast cancer awareness or camouflage for military appreciation. One interesting ripple is that the consecutive years of captaincy remains pertinent only if the player is in the same organization throughout the duration of his captaincy. Meaning, if a player changes teams but remains a captain, the amount of stars filled would still reset. For instance, Rams tackle Andrew Whitworth has only 3 gold stars, even though he has been a captain 11 times in his career. That's because his first 8 years of captaincy were with the Cincinnati Bengals, where he wore a gold C. There's been some pushback on this issue, as many players believe that the years served as captain should carry over, even if the player changes franchises. I think the pushback stems from just how much the players value the title. Whitworth explained it as such. "I think of it like a military badge. It gives an honor or certain respect to people about that player and what he has been through and accomplished. On top of all the leadership and responsibilities that the captains take on, both internally and externally for the team, they are also given a handful of responsibilities under NFL Rule 18, which details the guidelines for team captains. The first responsibility is probably the job that the general public most closely associates with a captain, despite its pretty overwhelming insignificance. That would be the coin toss. Yes, the coin toss. Under NFL Rule 18, each team can send up to 6 captains out at the beginning of the game to handle this menial responsibility. One lesser-known piece of this process is that only one player, who is designated as a speaking captain, is able to dictate the team's decisions during the toss. So often, teams that have permanent captain designations will send out honorary captains who played well the week prior or have earned the opportunity in practice out there, but it's largely irrelevant. The other surprising responsibility that captains have is to choose whether or not his team will elect to accept a penalty enforcement. While 99% of the time this decision is coming from the coaching staff, it is up to the captain on the field to properly relay this information to the officials. At the end of the day, though, a captain isn't really judged on his ability to win coin tosses or relay decisions on penalty enforcements. They aren't even really judged on their ability to give pump-up speeches. A captain needs to be able to set the tone for the team, to lead the team by example, and to consistently be accountable to a higher standard than the average NFL player. That is why it is so vital that teams think carefully about who they are selecting as the team captain and why. Otherwise, they might stumble into a Santonio Holmes type situation, and that can set a franchise back years. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to do that by clicking the subscribe button down below. If you like the video, then like the video. We'd really appreciate it. And last but not least, don't forget to tune in to TPS every single day for more cool videos.